Hey there, kiddos, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, hoping that you guys are having a great day. And in today's video, I am sitting back, relaxing on the porch, enjoying a nice, very loud summer evening, and testing out this little light. It's quite bright, but it doesn't really show up on the camera that well. And honestly, not talking about much, because insofar as I'm concerned, there's not a lot of newsworthy things to discuss. You know, there is, but there isn't. Nothing that I can make a whole video out of. So I suppose instead, in today's video, I want to talk about scope and meaning, and how that all ties in to the hobbies we enjoy. Now, I've been very vocal on the channel in the past about my love of physical games and my hatred of digital services, or digital-only games and services. I've been quite loud about that in the past, right? Earlier today, I learned that I think it's Pokemon Bank for the 3DS is finally closing down completely. And this is big news because it means that going forward, it'll be even harder for Pokemon fans to get their little digital pets from older generations onto newer generations, home and all that jazz. Now, I want to be very clear. For the most part, I don't care. I have very little interest in playing modern Pokemon, so this doesn't really affect me. I don't use Pokemon Home at all because, again, I don't play any of those games. And I have no real interest in moving the stuff from earlier gens like Gen 3, 4, 5, etc. to Gens 9 and whatever. But this is offensive to me, not because of what it means for me personally, but because it's just another example of what I find to be quite annoying in the game industry. And that is Nintendo, Pokemon, whichever company you want to blame for it, has built in an expiration date to a feature in their game, which I am very much against. I hate the idea of paying for an experience, and that experience, a game that you pick up, having some feature that you can eventually lose the ability to do. Now, if it's a hardware limitation, like old batteries on old video games, that's understandable, especially if it's something you can fix long term. If it's a hardware problem, like the actual game consoles eventually break down because of a variety of reasons, but how well you take care of it being a prime factor, I understand that. You pay for a game console, you pay for some games, and how long they last is really dependent on how many parts you're willing to swap out, how well you take care of it, all that jazz. I know disc rot's a thing, I know old cartridges do break down and all that jazz. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about an actual feature that has a built-in expiration date. The expiration date being whenever the company behind it feels like kind of arbitrarily ending it, And in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't really matter all that much. If this changed tomorrow, it would affect a grand total of like a few hundred people, right? But I feel like it's important to remember that when it comes to hobbies, scope is limited and meaning is individual. And by that I mean, when it comes to life, there's a lot of things in life that do not matter in the grand scheme of things, right? Congress, in the grand scheme of things, does not matter. If every member of Congress were to stop working tomorrow, it would probably be years before anyone in America really noticed, right? If, broadly, if Magic the Gathering stopped releasing sets, Magic players would be devastated, but life would go on. No one would really care. There's a lot of things that in the grand scheme of things, you could live without and don't matter all that much. There's plenty of things that you do need. You need food, you need clean water, a roof over your head. Those are the things that really matter in life. However, life is more than just the necessities. Life is made up of moments. Little moments, like the things you enjoy, the hobbies you partake in, and how you engage with those hobbies. And that's why I believe that in the grand scheme of things, the little things matter quite a lot. And to drive home how important this is, I think it's important that not just the negative things, but also the positive things are really reflected on, because there is a lot of really cool stuff out there. You know, I've talked before about how awesome it is that there's always new indie games and indie TCGs popping up, basically left, right, and center every single day, and there's always cool new stuff to try out. You know, I think it's unfortunate that thanks in part to the social media infested internet we live in, a lot of the news cycles we see is largely negative. You know, obviously that's just what feeds the algorithm. That's what gets people going, right? Is all the negativity on the algorithm and stuff. But I believe it's possible to also like really reflect on a lot of the good stuff in life. And sometimes, this light's dying. This light's really dying. Sometimes you just have to pause and look. And sure, you know, you can sit down there and grumble for a bit over Pokemon, some Pokemon games losing a feature that you don't really care about anyway, just because it offends your specific opinion on how the video game industry should be handled. Or you could spend that same amount of time admiring some really cool stuff, some really cool retro games that you weren't aware of until just a few days ago, for instance. Some publishers for indie games that you might not have been paying too much attention to. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. And at the end of the day, this video is not me grumbling about Pokemon. That's just the kicking off point. This video is me reminding you guys that... that's really dead. Oh well, it is what it is. This video is me reminding you guys that there's so much more to life than just the important stuff. And hobbies in general can be an excellent way to fill your life with things that make life worth living. And as I've said in previous videos, I implore you to go out of your way to find the awesome stuff in life and just try to find the enjoyment where you can. Because you never know. Maybe you'll miss out on something because some company arbitrarily decided to remove it. And you'd never know when you never know what kind of cool stuff is lying right around the corner, right? Anyway, I feel like this one's just a ramble video for me. It kind of is, but I don't have a problem with that. Thank you guys so much for watching, even though you can't really see me at this point. I do appreciate it, though. I'll talk to you later, all right? Ciao.